Before we get this show started, let's review quickly on how one plays Tools and Titans. So, how do you play Tools and Titans? Easy. Draw your cards. Charge your energy. Build your field. Act with your powers. Clash with your Titans. End your turn. 6 steps, 1 epic battle.
That's the rhythm of the game we've come to know. It's the foundation for the creative genius of the Tool Titans and the destructive fury of the Rustborn. It's a solid, dependable loop.
But what happens when you don't just play by the rules, but with the rules themselves? What if the battlefield wasn't just shaped by Titans, but by the very laws of existence?
Today, we're going off the map. We're leaving the familiar hum of the forges and the screech of rusted metal behind.
All right, another spark and another build. The craft begins. Today we're going beyond the forge heart, past the rust-born corrosion, and into a different realm entirely. We aren't just ascending into power, we're ascending into principle.
We're talking about the Primordials, the oldest, the most mythically abstract faction in all of Tools and Titans. They are a challenge not just to your deck, but to your entire understanding of the game.
These aren't beings born of trades, tools, or familiar crafts. I've been trying to wrap my head around this since we decided on this topic. They don't have a guild. They don't have an allegiance in the traditional sense.
They don't. Because they are the concepts that make trade itself possible. They are the unseen forces at work in every action. Time, heat, light, gravity, even structure itself.
It's a huge concept. The game's creators are basically giving players the source code of their universe to play with.
That's a perfect way to put it. The Primordials, known collectively as the Natural 13, are the origin beings of this mytho-industrial cosmos. They're not quite characters. Think of them as 60% pure essence and 40% titanic form. They are the laws before there were laws and the forces before there were forms.
Okay, let's break that down. The Natural 13. So, who are they, really? If they aren't Titans, what are they?
Think of them as 13 ancient metaphysical entities, part abstract force, part sentient archetype. Unlike a Tool Titan who is shaped by their trade and their intentions, the Primordials are the foundational truths that allowed Tools, Titans, and even the Weave to exist in the first place.
So they're not just playing the game, they are the game engine.
Precisely. Each primordial is a singular manifestation of a physical, conceptual, or even a metaphysical law. We've mentioned a few before. Thermodra is the embodiment of heat. Chronark is time itself.
And those are the easy ones to grasp. What about some of the more esoteric ones?
Let's take Pressuron, the embodiment of pressure. In game terms, this translates to force escalation. Its cards create stacking thresholds. Nothing happens. Then suddenly a seal breaks, and a massive effect triggers because the pressure limit was reached.
So it encourages building up to one critical moment. What about Vacra, the vacuum or void? That sounds terrifying.
It is. Vacra is an exiled dominator. Its entire gameplay is about removal, not just destroying cards and sending them to the junkyard, but exiling them from the game entirely. It creates a void on the field and in your opponent's deck.
I see a few others on this list. Condurex, which is conductivity. It sounds like a support role.
It is, but in a very unique way. Condurex is a chain linker. Its abilities allow effects to spread from one card to another, even to cards that normally couldn't be targeted. It links your field together into one conductive network.
And then there are the conceptual ones. You said Aetherin is intuition? How does that even work?
Aetherin is a prediction engine. Its mechanics are about reactive casting and foresight. You get rewarded for correctly predicting your opponent's next move, or for having the right card in hand at the exact moment a certain condition is met. It's a deck for players who can read their opponent like a book.
Wow. So these aren't Titans who build things or break things. They're the frameworks, the foundation on which everything else depends.
While Titans shape the world, Primordials are the world. They represent the core forces of existence. They're the origin layer of the entire TNT mythos, the source from which all trade, all skill, and all form eventually descend.
And you mentioned this duality, 60% essence and 40% echo form. Let's go deeper on that. Does that mean they are weaker than a regular Titan?
Not weaker, just different, more ephemeral. Their essence is their true state, conceptually omnipresent. The echo form is the 40% we see on the table, a temporary, playable avatar that allows them to interact with the game. It's like the tip of an iceberg. The real power, the essence, is unseen, governing the rules of the encounter.
So they existed before everything else? Before the first Tool Titan was ever forged?
Before all else, before the first cast, the first tool, the first forge accord, they are the first layer of the universe's history. But they only began to manifest in these playable echo forms during a specific time.
The Loom Fracture Era. Remind our listeners what that was. It sounds cataclysmic.
It was. The weave, the fundamental energy that Titans draw upon, became unstable. Think of it as the fabric of reality tearing at the seams. This destabilization was so profound that it dragged these conceptual forces, kicking and screaming, into tangible forms.
So they didn't choose to appear? They were forced to?
Exactly. And here's the key. These echoes can't be permanently destroyed. When they're defeated, they just recur or phase out, or rewrite themselves into other forms. They are timeless. But they only choose to act when the fundamental balance of existence is broken.
So where do beings like this even live? They don't have a forge or a workshop.
They dwell in places you can't find on a map. Metaplanes, non-linear zones, conceptual regions that mirror their identity. Chronark, the primordial of time, resides in the reversal spire, a frozen turnstack echo with fields that literally rewind gameplay.
What would a PvE campaign in a place like that even look like?
Imagine a dungeon where at the end of every third turn, the game resets to the state it was in at the beginning of the cycle, but you keep the knowledge of what's coming. It's a paradox puzzle, or Obscuron's Darksong Labyrinth, an illusion-bound maze where cards are played face down and their true identities are hidden until they're activated.
So in the game's campaign modes, their homes become the levels. Time loop dungeons, paradox shrines, fields for testing universal laws.
You've got it. Which brings us to why they matter so much. They are playable yet utterly mythic. They don't just alter your strategy for a turn, they can alter the very rules of the game.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. How do they actually play? If they don't use tools or tasks like other Titans, what do?
They operate on a whole different level. Their mechanics go beyond the standard game loop. Remember the turn structure?
Of course. Draw, charge, building act, clash, end.
Every Titan turn, draw, charge, building act, clash, end, 6 steps, infinite ways to forge your victory.
But the Primordials break that.
They bend it. They have something called synthesis abilities. These are effects that don't trigger from you playing a card or spending energy. They trigger when the game state matches a universal law.
You gave the Chronark example, activating if no cards are played. Give me another one.
Okay, take Thermodra, the heat primordial. It might have a synthesis ability that says, if the total number of cards in all junkyards exceeds 20, raise the ambient temperature by 1. This happens automatically, for free. The rising chaos of the game literally heats up the board.
That's a mind bender. What else is in their toolkit?
Phase manipulation. Chronark can let you skip phases. Gravem, the gravity primordial, can increase the cost of actions, effectively locking down phases. Then there are reality shift mechanics. These are the most powerful. These are cards that cause meta-level changes.
Okay, give me a concrete example of a reality shift. This sounds game-breaking.
Imagine a card played by Formance, the structure primordial. It could be called Architectural Mandate. For 3 turns, the normal victory condition of reducing your opponent's health to 0 is ignored. Instead, the first player to have 4 structure cards on the field in a perfect square formation wins.
It changes how you win the game. That's insane. And they don't cast spells, you said?
Correct. They use essence cast cards. These aren't spells or tools. They are direct emanations of the Primordials concept. You don't cast Fireball. Thermodra lets you play a card called Radiate Heat. You don't cast Hold. Gravem lets you play Collapse Gravity. Lucidra, the signal primordial, might play Transmit Sequence or Echoing Command. The name tells you the concept.
It's so thematic. And what about their weakness? You mentioned their forms are unstable. Let's talk strategy. How do you beat one?
It's their primary balancing mechanic, the unstable echo form. All primordials have a fragile state, their essence threshold. If you can damage them enough to drop their essence below a certain point, they phase out. They aren't destroyed, but they vanish from the field. The strategy becomes a choice. Do you attack the player, or do you focus all fire on the primordial itself to make it collapse?
So with all this power, what are their strengths versus their weaknesses? Let's lay it all out.
Their biggest strength is that they are rule benders. They are the best faction for rewriting the fundamental patterns of play. They offer incredible zone control and passive influence, with abilities that activate without you spending a single point of energy.
But what's the catch? Let's talk about that high complexity. What makes them so difficult?
It's because you have to think about the game on 2 levels simultaneously. You're tracking the board state, the creatures, the energy, the health totals, but you're also tracking abstract conditions, the number of cards in the discard, the phases being skipped, the alternate win condition you just activated. It requires immense game awareness.
And their other weaknesses?
Those fragile echo forms we talked about. If you can't protect their essence threshold, your ultimate being will just phase out, leaving you wide open. And they have very unstable synergy. They do not mix well with traditional tool and task systems. You can't just splash a primordial into your favorite deck. You have to build entirely around it.
And their biggest risk is a fast, aggressive opponent.
Exactly. A Rustborn aggro deck, for example, doesn't care about your clever time loop combo. It just wants to play cheap, powerful cards and attack every single turn. It creates a tension. Many primordial decks function around an indirect, almost philosophical path to victory, and that can be completely foiled by a couple of big, angry titans punching you in the face.
Let's talk about those strategy archetypes. We mentioned time loop control with Chronark. What about the Seal Architect deck with Formance?
That deck is all about building a fortress. Formance uses special seal cards to lock down zones on the board. Once you have enough seals in a specific pattern, you can enable powerful recurring effects, drawing extra cards every turn, generating free energy, or making your core structures indestructible. It's a slow, methodical, but incredibly powerful control style.
It's a faction for the player who doesn't just want to win, but wants to win by proving a point, by demonstrating a fundamental law of the universe. So in the grand story of Tools and Titans, what is their ultimate function? Do they take a side in the war between the guilds and the Rustborn?
Number? And that's what makes them so fascinating. They are utterly neutral, because they are the framework itself. They might manifest to stop a plan that threatens to unravel time itself, but they won't do it to save a city. They act to preserve reality, not morality. They are the founders of the world's logic.
They're invoked in the lore during huge, cosmic events. The shattering of time with Chronark. The collapse of the core flow. A story centered on Gravem. They are the living stages for the game's biggest stories.
They often act as non-player constants in a zone, or as massive, event-level triggers in campaign modes. They are the judgment forces of the universe. They symbolize that tension we mentioned between pure, abstract essence and physical form.
And the struggle between order and entropy.
It's like the universe is trying to remember its own laws, And in a meta sense, they are a message from the game designers themselves. A message that says that the deepest form of mastery isn't just knowing the rules, but understanding the principles behind them.
The Primordials don't fight for power. They are the very conditions that determine whether power can even exist. A universe built on rules, and the ancient beings who wrote them.
And in every game, you get to be the one who wields those rules.
In every match of Tools and Titans, your tradecraft unfolds in 6 simple moves: draw, charge, building, act, clash, end.
Simplicity for the novice,
Mastery for the Titan.